Hi, Acadiana. Meteorologist Dave Baker here on a Friday at September the 12th, 2025. This is Let's Talk Tropics. We're going to be looking at the Atlantic Basin where we've got a tropical wave that's coming off the African coast as we speak, and the National Hurricane Center will be monitoring that over the weekend. But more likely, we're going to see some development with this, according to the models at least, sometime during the early part of next week. A couple of other tropical waves are moving across the Atlantic. But at this time, we're not really seeing any thing trying to develop at this point. But the models start to get a little more active. At least one or two of the models try to get some stuff going a little bit closer to home. We'll get into that in just a little bit. First of all, outside, a lot of sunshine. It's going to be another hot one today, heading for 93. We're at 89 now, but it feels like 93. The dew point 68, relative humidity 50%, with a light breeze out of the east at around 3 miles per hour. Hi, Sean. I got Mario on the satellite here coming up in just a little bit. Thanks for joining us here on Acadiana Weather today. There's a quick look at the radar. Again, a lot of dry air in place, so we're not expecting any issues with any rain. And if you got to do some traveling this weekend locally, I think you're going to be in good shape. Plenty of sunshine out there in the Acadiana area, and lots of dry conditions too. So that dry air is going to continue to kind of push on in here, coming in more from the northeast. The jet stream, though, aloft, a bit more of a dip here in parts of the the western part of the country, and then it kind of ridges here to the north, and then we get a little bit more of a dip like that. So with that ridge of high pressure in place, that's going to really block anything from coming in our direction, and also keep things very, very hot. There's a quick look at Panama City Beach. Another gorgeous day out there, and down the Gulf Coast here at Orange Beach. Another very pretty day. A lot of clear skies over at Dauphin Island this time around. There's a beautiful shot of the Dauphin Island Bridge. And out to our west over toward Galveston. Just a little bit of cloud cover out there, and really a very nice day. If you're going to do some boating today or over the weekend, really not going to have any problems out there. We've got light breezes out of the east or northeast, about 5 to 10 knots, and seas running about 1 to 2 feet. And as far as our frontal boundary, it's still out here in the middle part of the Atlantic. No issues there. Got a little bit of activity kind of developing there along the front, but it's not tropical in nature. There's a lot of dry air coming in from this direction. We've got a lot of wind shear coming in from that direction, so we're not going to see anything develop, and we're going to continue to see some of this drier air kind of punching southward here. You can see the dividing line right there, and that's going to continue to punch southward down into the Gulf waters. Highway Net, how's it going today? Hope you have a great weekend. Central America, we've got a lot of moisture right down here off the Panamanian coastline, kind of drifting its way west over toward Costa Rica, and some of that is going to be affecting parts of Central America into Honduras and Nicaragua here in a couple of coming days. We've got a bit of a tropical wave right there, and it's going to go ahead and continue to push off toward the west. And out here, just outside of the Caribbean, we've got another tropical wave that's working its way over toward the Windward Islands. Got a little bit of convection out here, but really not associated with the wave itself. And that wave is going to go ahead and work into the in the Caribbean waters, and just kind of drift its way off toward the west. There's no action expected to come off of that tropical wave here over the next couple of days. Up here to the north, you've got a little bit more of an upper trough. You can kind of see that flow going around the bottom of that low. And again, that's high in the atmosphere. Any tropical weather needs to be right down at the surface. So upper level stuff really kind of tends to steer already formed tropical systems. They don't really form anything unless low pressure can start to work its way all the way down to the surface. Got another tropical wave right about here, and another tropical wave that's just coming off of the African coast. So there's the big picture there. Got a lot of tropical waves. The one that's coming off the African coast has about a 40% chance for some development here over the next week or so. The other waves that are working across the Atlantic aren't looking like there's going to be any development there. And neither will that wave that's over Central America. And there you go, Sean. Over on the Pacific side, there is Tropical Storm Mario, which developed and will continue to kind of push its way off toward the west-northwest, kind of hugging the Mexican coastline. So as far as the Atlantic Basin, the National Hurricane Center is going to continue to watch that tropical wave. And you can see right now it's right on the coast of Africa. But over the coming days, it'll drift west of the Cape Verde Islands and get out into the central and western part of the Atlantic Ocean. And at this time, it looks like it's got a medium chance for development. They're putting about 40% here on days 3 through 7. Also wanted to point out that the Global Tropics Hazard Outlook that works with week 2 and week 3 is also keeping things pretty active there from the Cape Verde Islands westward almost to the Leeward Islands, and even going toward the latter part of the month. It still keeps a little window of opportunity that we're going to be seeing out there in the middle part of the Atlantic. But also you may notice in week 2 and week 3 that the Western Caribbean, Bay of Campeche, Yucatan area also lights up. Now it is less than 20% on any chances that there would be some development, but I will say there are a couple of models that are trying to warm up to the idea that something could try to get going there over the western part of the Caribbean. So right now your Eurotropical formation forecast, and what this does is it just kind of looks at anything that could possibly make its way in there, and it's almost nearly a 100% chance here, or rather better than 80% chance that we're going to be seeing something develop. And most of the models have a tropical system associated with our tropical wave that's coming off of the African coast, developing there somewhere off into the central part of the Atlantic. Sherlock, how's it going? Hope you have a great weekend too. Thanks for joining us here on Let's Talk Tropics. Out in the Atlantic, this is the Euro Ensemble. So again, if you're not familiar with the ensembles, what this does is it gives you a forecast, and then there's several different tweaks in the forecast because we all know there's going to be some changes between now and let's say 10 days out. And this is a 10-day forecast. So we've got our little tropical wave that's out here right off the African coast. And then you can see a lot of these tracks kind of push off toward the west. And then by day 10, most of your lows are out here somewhere. And it also looks like there might be a secondary low that could pass through here where you're seeing the lows out here. This actually might be a little bit farther down the road. But the wave that we're looking at right here, your cone of uncertainty is going to be kind of like that because these are all of the different solutions that are in the middle. So even though you see a bunch of different lines, when you have a lot of disagreement, when you go way out here into day 10, so you got something here and you got something here, then you got a huge spread, the confidence in your forecast does seem to go down just a little bit. So as it drifts off toward the west, we're going to see those changes there. Now, the GFS is a little bit different. It concentrates these lines here pretty closely here over the Atlantic, which is right about where the National Hurricane Center's development zone is. And then you start to see that big spread that goes out here. And again, once you get out 10 days like that, you just have too much uncertainty. So it's really hard to determine where a tropical system would go if it indeed developed. But one of the things I wanted to point out too on the GFS is you got a little bit more action, at least trying to forecast here over the western part of the Caribbean, and then maybe kind of a few lows lifting northward. It's not a lot. It's not a big hit like what you're seeing over here, but you also got to pay attention to these areas because the western Caribbean, the southern part of the Gulf, is prime area for development during the month of September. So I wanted to go through some of the models once again, and this is the European model. And what we're looking at is called the precipitable water. And basically, this is a good measurement of how much moisture is in the atmosphere. And one of the problems that we've been having with development out here in the middle part of the Atlantic is we've been seeing the subtropical drier air kind of sliding off toward the southwest. And a lot of that because of this ridge of high pressure that's out over the central part of the Atlantic. So what happens is, this area here where you're going to see the tropical systems develop, the air's been very dry, and that's what happened with 91L. I guess this was about maybe a week to 10 days ago. It seems like it was a week to 10 days ago. It might have been just last week. But 91L was tracking its way off toward the west, and then the dry air just pretty much took care of the rest of it. And we saw it dissipate, even though some of the models were showing some signs of formation. So let's just fast forward here, and I want you to notice how that tropical area there, the central Atlantic, turns a little bit more from yellow to blue, and that's an indication that there's a little bit more moisture. And you can see there's a couple of lows there, and they do tend to develop. Looks like maybe the first one that's coming off the African coast is going to take this little bit of a turn like what you're seeing there. And then it looks like there's a second one and maybe even a third one being predicted by the Euro model. But again, we're getting out here into that 240-hour window. So there, I think we're pretty much past that now. Hard for my eyes to see that. There's 240 hours. So For one, you do see that there's a lot more moisture available out here, so perhaps some of these tropical waves might have a better chance for staying together as they move off toward the west. Let's go ahead and check out the GFS. Let me go ahead and rewind it here back to today. There we go. That looks like pretty close. And again, you see the lack of moisture that's out here in the tropical part of the Atlantic. Again, that's that ridge of high pressure there, and we're starting to see more of that dry air kind of coming off toward the southwest. So that's what's been kind of inhibiting some of the tropical development here over the last week or so. Notice, though, there's a lot more moisture that starts to kind of get into this tropical area here over the next several days, including that wave that's continuing to move off toward the west. And as it does, it'll continue to possibly hold on. Now, the GFS really doesn't have it hold on too well, and now we're way beyond that 10-day outlook there. There's 10 days right about there. And also, I'm noticing here there's not as much action down in the Central American region either. So maybe the GFS is starting to back off on some of that too. Finally, the Canadian model, again, you're starting to see more of the moisture rolling off the African coast and kind of holding there in the tropical Atlantic. The wave that's over Africa does appear like the Canadian wants to try to develop that, and kind of like the Euro, you got a couple of other areas that are off toward the west that might have a chance for some development. But at this point, it looks like the ridge of high pressure is going to hold pretty strong out here over the eastern part of the Atlantic. So that would tend to curve everything kind of more in this direction. So keeping it away from the Gulf waters. Of course, you do see here at the very last frame, there's a bit of a low there right off the Yucatan Channel, and a pretty good surge of moisture here that comes from Central America up to around the Bahamas. So that might be an area to be watching here in about a week to 10 days. Lastly, I want to go into the ICON model, and the ICON does not give us the PWAT. So what we're going to have to do is we're just going to look at the surface here and some of the winds. ICON is usually pretty aggressive with developing things as they move off toward the west, but it really doesn't look much different than the other global models there. And also it is showing that ridge of high pressure staying pretty strong out here over the Atlantic. So hopefully that would turn anything away from the U.S. East Coast and keep the rest of our tropical systems out in the Atlantic. Of course, this particular model is not really showing anything beyond the 7-day outlook. So as far as that is concerned, the 7-day outlook just keeps that out in the middle part of the Atlantic as well. Now, I do have a question there on Mario, and I'm going to go back here real quick with that tropical weather outlook here. Let's do the Eastern Atlantic one right there that shows Mario. So, Sean, the track that I'm seeing here is basically something maybe kind of in this particular direction, maybe hugging the Mexican coast, but it does appear that it's going to be more of a westward drift, according to the National Hurricane Center's official forecast there. So that's a little check there on Mario. And as far as Mario's strength, it does look like it's expected to stay probably a tropical storm for the duration, but at this point, it looks like the center of circulation is going to stay pretty far from land, so we do have a little tropical storm watch that's there along the Mexican coast, but after the next couple of days, it's going to be pushing farther away from the coast, and hopefully we won't have any issues there along the Mexican coast with Mario, but it doesn't look like it's going to get too strong. Let's real quick take a look at the water temperatures here. And as I've been telling you pretty much all season long, the Gulf waters, the Western Caribbean are pretty much sky high, in some cases getting close to 90 degrees, and that tropical cyclone heat potential is just off the charts in those areas. So that is why we want to keep any tropical systems away from this region, because that premium fuel could ramp something up really, really quickly. Of course, we are still here right about the peak of the hurricane season. We topped off on September the 10th. It does start to go down when it comes to the amount of activity, but even halfway through October, we are still way above where we would be during the 1st of August there. So it is a good time to continue to prepare while things are nice and quiet out there, because all the supplies that you would need to be ready for a tropical storm or hurricane are available in all of the local stores. Take the inventory of what you need, and if you get a chance over the weekend, just pick up a few things, and that'll get you a couple of steps ahead of everybody else, just in case the rest of the hurricane season turns out busy. Well, I hope hope you enjoyed Let's Talk Tropics. If you do, like this video, subscribe to my channel, and also turn on those notifications. And don't forget, you can hear my forecasts on Big 102.1, Planet Radio 106.7, and Freedom 95.1. I'll be over at WBRZ in Baton Rouge tomorrow. I know a lot of y'all get it on TV here, but if you don't, you can go to WBRZ.com. And that will supply you with a live stream. I also have a direct link to that live stream in the description below. I'll be on Saturday and Sunday morning shows. We've got a show at 10 on Saturday and a show at 9 a.m. on Sunday. And then I'll see you for Tune In on Monday and Tuesday. That show runs from 5 to 9. Don't forget, you can also follow my social media pages for any updates over the weekend. And a big thank you to everyone who's already subscribed to Acadiana Weather Today right here on YouTube. Hope you all have a great weekend. Thanks for visiting me, and I will see you on Monday.